Hello, and welcome to celiac.com news. Subscribe to our channel to get the latest celiac disease and gluten-free diet news. And if you have any questions, be sure to join the celiac.com forum online at celiac.com. And now let's move on to the latest celiac.com news. Understanding the need for better gluten monitoring. For people with celiac disease, avoiding gluten is essential. Just a tiny amount can trigger immune reactions that damage the small intestine. Yet, steering clear of gluten is often harder than it sounds. Gluten can hide in processed foods, show up due to cross-contamination in kitchens or factories, or exist in trace amounts even in products labeled gluten-free. Currently, doctors rely on blood tests and symptoms to track whether someone is successfully avoiding gluten. But these methods aren't always reliable, especially for detecting small or accidental exposures. This study explored a new option: tests that detect gluten fragments called gluten immunogenic peptides, GPs, in urine and stool. These fragments resist digestion and stay in the body long enough to be measured, providing a more direct way to detect recent gluten intake. Researchers used two tests developed by Biometal, IViCheck, a urine test, and Ivalisa, a stool test. The urine test works well for recent exposure, while the stool test gives a longer-term picture of gluten intake over several days. To evaluate these tools, researchers studied 21 people, 16 on a gluten-free diet, mostly diagnosed with celiac disease, and 5 without dietary restrictions. Over 9 days, participants kept food and symptom diaries, tracking everything they ate and how they felt. They also provided stool and urine samples on specific days, which were then tested for gluten peptides and compared with their reported food intake. The results were eye-opening. The stool test was highly accurate, detecting gluten in 97% of people who had consumed it and rarely giving false negatives. The urine test was even more sensitive, identifying all reported cases of gluten exposure, but it also had some false positives, possibly due to hidden gluten or inaccurate food reporting. One participant who believed they were gluten-free experienced symptoms and then found high gluten levels in their stool, highlighting how these tests can uncover accidental exposure that might otherwise be missed. Surprisingly, over half of the participants on gluten-free diets showed some gluten in their samples. This suggests either gluten is sneaking into gluten-free meals more often than expected, or the tests might occasionally produce false positives. Still, this raised important questions about how truly gluten-free some diets are in practice. Participants generally welcome the testing tools, especially as a way to identify hidden gluten in their diet. Most preferred the urine test for its convenience, though collecting multiple samples and keeping a detailed food diary was a bit much for some. Parents of children with celiac disease were particularly interested since it can be tough to monitor what kids eat at school or social events. While the study showed promise, it did have limitations. It relied on self-reported food diaries rather than confirming meals independently. And it didn't include blood tests or biopsies to assess whether the detected gluten caused harm. More research will be needed to confirm the effectiveness of these tests and define how they should be used in everyday care. For people with celiac disease, these tests could be a game changer. They offer a more accurate way to check for hidden gluten, especially when symptoms or blood tests are unclear. A negative result could reassure someone that they're staying gluten-free, while a positive one might prompt stricter precautions. As these tests become more accessible, they may become an important tool in managing celiac disease and preventing long-term health issues. Ultimately, with more research and wider availability, urine and stool GIP tests could help people with celiac disease stay safer and feel more in control on their gluten-free journey. To get the latest celiac disease news and information, be sure to subscribe to celiac.com news. Thank you for tuning in, and see you next time.